All right, everybody, welcome in to the Sideline Dynasty League. I know some new terms there. How crazy is it? It's starting this year. The Sideline Dynasty League kind of came out of nowhere, came in with a left hook. We weren't expecting it. And here we are, Krim,
We're
joined by
here.
my faithful co-host,
Here,
Krim Charles.
here we are, everybody.
Here we go.
We finally got finished drafting after, a grueling 4 days
Grueling.
of drafting.
Yep.
Good job, everybody. Fantastic time all around.
Yeah, fantastic time all around, right? No controversies, no drama, no bitching or complaining throughout. It went extremely smooth as
Yeah,
expected, Krim.
very smooth, as anybody could have thought it was going to.
Exactly. Hell yeah. Yeah, so this idea kind of came out of left field. Obviously, like I said, there was I usually don't like being in mini leagues at all. I know some people like Dana, I think is in like 10 plus leagues. How many leagues are you in, Krim? You've
Uh,
kind of been around like seven
yeah,
or eight-ish
no,
with
no,
me.
I've slimmed down. I'm in a total of four, including this one
Oh,
now.
nice. Okay. So and that's kind of where I've been. I think I've done four once before, and it was like literally like I was like, all right, like that's as extreme capacity there. So, when a spot opened up, I was like, hey, I mean, I don't have never done a dynasty league. This is probably the time to maybe try to do it. Got a keeper league, the redraft league, and a kind of another evolution of that. So I think it came at the perfect time. We got a really solid group of guys. I feel like some new bloods, while we got some OGs in there as well. Overall, what do you think of the owner construction? If we're gonna have this dynasty league and be something that goes on for a long, long time, what do you think about this group of guys?
Definitely interesting. I mean, again, like a lot of our leagues will just end up being bulk of the same people. I guess just that of the same pool of people, I should say. But getting in someone like a Jay, getting in someone like Bryce, who welcome back, Bryce, welcome back to fantasy football.
Yeah.
He found your way
Even
back
Drake
to
was
it.
only in the
Yeah,
redraft. He's only been in the
yeah.
redraft league
He's
for
only in the
one
meter for
year,
a
and
year,
he's
so
still
like, we have a good mix of
belly.
people finding Spelly, yeah, off of the baseball league, and he's in our redraft as well. I think that it's a good active group of people, and a good amount of dudes who love to trade. That's a big part of Dynasty in its own right. So throughout the off season itself, it'll be very interesting to see how teams change. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, again, people we've known for time, we know that they're pretty consistent when it comes to fantasy football. So I think we have a pretty good group here.
Yeah, and you mentioned trading, and obviously, I wanted to get guys that were active that I knew talked a lot, this and that knew maybe not knew each other really well, but I knew would also be like smart when it comes to fantasy football for the most part, or they're just a dandy good old time. Because as weird as it sounds, dynasty leagues might actually have less trading in certain ways than a keeper league or a redraft league, just because this trade can have an impact years down the road. You're at least, I don't want to say you're thinking about it more. I think everyone thinks deeply about the trades they make, but like there's a lot more nuances and complexities to making trades in Dynasty. I remember I just talked to, I think it was Dana last week about it, or even you about it. It's going to be really interesting to see like the first trades, the first big trades that go through that involve like first round picks to just really see like, okay, like as a league are people going to value those first round picks? It's easy to maybe look around at other dynasty leagues and base it off that. Maybe that's what happens, but like what's the first huge trade that's going to happen that has a first round pick, multiple first round picks, players going back? That's really going to almost like set the precedent of what trades can look like in this league. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, trades probably won't be flying all throughout this season just because, again, they have ramifications months, years down the road. We've obviously seen one so far, which
Yeah.
no surprise there. I mean, that's gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, the first, I guess, domino to fall, and that first round pick that's gone, that sets the tone for kind of what your asking prices will be moving forward. Not that they won't change year to year. I mean, again, you're gonna go into a draft and into an off season. I mean, a first round pick in November, December can look very different than a first round pick in, you know, um, like February, March, April, like before the draft happens. And once you know kind of how the pool plays out and rookies coming in, more so again, classes year to year will change. I mean, we've seen draft classes in the NFL, and they'll be pretty prominent on that. Is the top four guys are tackles. Okay, cool. I'm drafting, a bottom
Yeah.
half guy in the first round as my number one
Right.
overall pick, or you go into a draft like next year where you have about 5 to 7 quarterbacks, who can go in the first round, and that changes things a lot. So from year to year, we'll see the values change for sure. Um, Draft to draft obviously will be a big pain point there, but yeah, all in all, I mean, the quality of player that you get back for that first overall pick is going to speak volume.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point how even just, I've talked so far in the chat how the 1-1 and the 1-4 could be different. Like this year, Jeremiah Love and the fourth or fifth pick, whatever, Casey Concepcion. Now that doesn't mean that player won't be good, but it just shows like how even like a front half first round pick has changed so much from a back half first round pick, right? And you even mentioned the year to year on it as well. I mean, did some teams maybe draft older quarterback? Was Chad okay drafting a Stafford, knowing that there literally could be 5 or 6 first round quarterbacks taken next year, where essentially half of our league is going to maybe get one, and that's not even including some of the receivers taken and stuff like that. But you've also mentioned, some drafts don't really have heavy skill position players at all, quarterbacks, running, whatever it might be, where that first round pick that's 1-1 or 1-2 might not even look as good as the 1-4 or 1-5 the next year. So it really is kind of interesting to see that play out. It could make people pay attention to the college game even a little bit more, because they obviously know, like, hey, do I want a front end pick? Do I not? Obviously, Arch Manning next year. Some of these other big names coming out will make it interesting. Jeremiah Smith. So yeah, I mean, next year's class could be really loaded. And I wonder, a lot of us are new to dynasty leagues. Did anyone think of that in the draft when they were taking quarterbacks? Like, part of me did that when I took Jacoby Brissett. I'm like, do I take another young guy that might be a third stringer and has no chance of starting? Or do I just take someone that can kind of help me not win this year, but quarterback's on a bye? Let me throw him in. I know he's a starter. Maybe he won't be a starter by week 5. Beck right behind him. But it does make you wonder in the future how people are going to address rookies. Because again, we haven't even really talked. This is the only time we draft. There is no redos. There is no oops, let's do this again. Like that was it. So the way we drafted was unique in our league and the unique the way we did it. And it's gonna definitely put some things into play.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely look at it as well when we look at the board and draft as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it's the first draft and the only draft we will do that's full-fledged like that. Obviously, we have rookie drafts going forward, but your roster being set in the way that it is now likely won't look the same, obviously, at the end of the year or obviously 2 to 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
Things will change in your favor or not in your favor. And like you said, there are a lot of decisions that went into that first initial team that set your foundation for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And we'll look at that as well when we look at the results themselves. Going into the dynasty draft, however, was there anything that you yourself kind of were not really skeptical of, but needed to kind of, I guess, dive into more so prior to the draft to just understand the approach you were going to take?
Yeah, it was definitely different. I mean, obviously, I don't really do a ton of pre-draft looking at things, but I think the dynasty draft really in the last few years, when we started the keeper league being a 2 QB league, that kind of switched it up a little bit, right? Because then quarterbacks became more valuable. You had to take them earlier than ever. So that was kind of like a new, okay, like I'll get used to that. And it being, well, not even taken, but the budgeting, like they were paying a lot for quarterbacks, right? Because our league's an auction league. This I think even threw it more for a loop, right? Because it really is like hearing Saquon Barkley's and Christian McCaffrey's going in like rounds 4 and 5 is like it's almost like jarring to the system, whether it's a keeper league or not, right? Because they're still going to go for a lot of money in a keeper league, and you could just send them back in if they get hurt or whatever, like no big deal. So to see some of these like bigger names that are more on maybe the back end of their prime was interesting to see like where they would go. I mean, we literally just had essentially a 2 QB league, right? Our dynasty league with the super flex. We had the league MVP going what? Matt Stafford around like 12, 13, 4. I don't remember exactly when
Yep.
it was, but it was later. That's crazy, but it makes sense because what if he only has a year left, right? So I think there was a lot of those things to look at, to consider, and to kind of at least be aware of going in. But it definitely, I don't think anyone really knew going in how our league was going to draft. I think some people did a little bit of homework on dynasty leagues. There were some comments in there like, "Oh, there's a lot of this being taken," or "I was surprised." But really, I didn't know what to expect going in. I mean, it was just like a let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I would agree. I mean, you can have an idea of what a dynasty league is, and all of us really did, I would assume, going into that draft a little
Yep.
bit. But the approach, again, like any draft in a redraft league, is different. You can have your guys with the guys that you want for this year. Dynasty wise, you're gonna have to obviously react to on the fly to who gets taken, and again, weigh a lot of different things, because again, it's longevity in a sense where you need these players for the foreseeable future. You're not just having one and done seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, going from there into the actual draft itself, I'll pop up the draft board here again.
Yeah, and the way we're
So
kind of going to do this real quick before you jump
yeah,
into the draft is I know some people might be expecting power rankings or like playoff projections. We kind of talked about it a little bit pre-show since we don't really have divisions formatted yet. We don't really know. We know we're probably have 6 playoff teams and this and that, but we don't really know how those are going to come to be. And we haven't, me and Krim both admittedly have not really deeply looked at all the teams yet. So this is really going to be our first way of kind of raw doing this. We are not going to pick playoff teams. We're not going to do projections. We'll save that for a little bit of a later show. This is going to be just kind of be a quick draft review, thoughts on the league kind of thing. So that's what we're going to look at. Go
yeah,
ahead, Krim.
yeah. And I full fledged believe that while these teams look like they do now, we still have 2 weeks before the season starts. There's a good chance that these change, whether it's an injury happens in camp, someone
Yeah.
comes up with a deal that someone just can't turn down. Like I know teams are looking at, I'm assuming, competing in year one. Others may just be like, you know what, I'm going to punt and build myself for the future. Don't think that's the case with this first year. So it'll be interesting to kind of break down the draft and how people went about it. But yeah, we don't know how teams will look in 2 weeks, and we'll
Yeah.
definitely touch base on that once we have the foundation set.
Yeah.
Um, so looking at the draft board here, given that it was a super flex league, so we have one quarterback, one super flex that can be a quarterback. 89% of the time will be a quarterback, so there's
Yeah.
really no surprise here that some of them went early. In this first round, is there anybody here that you felt went too early?
I mean, there's definitely some risky ones. I don't think anything's egregious or bad. But I do worry about kind of the back end there. I worry about those 3 quarterbacks taken, and of course, I'm going to leave my man Iceman out because I even said pre-draft. I think I told you if you could tell me the exact perfect spot to pick Caleb Williams in the first round, that's the pick I would have chosen. Just because how fun would that be to ride with him in the dynasty? Lack of bias aside, I think those last 3 choices in the first round are interesting, just because 30-year-old Lamar Jackson, who, yes, probably for the next year or two will be elite. I'm not saying he's going to fall off in a year either. That's not what I'm saying. But in a dynasty league, I feel like you want to kind of get someone that you can ride with for at least the next 5, 6 years. And I just don't know if Jackson's career is going to lead to that. I think we've already seen some regression on that end. And then Jaden Daniels in a kind of similar boat with the injury concern, Joe Burrow with the injury concern. And then for Dana to throw it right back in there and take a dude that was concussed like half the games last year. Great talent, right? Burrow and Dart could both be immensely great talents. I think Dart really has it, but man, those are for a dynasty league that you're looking to be good for X amount of years. Those were some, I mean, they're gambles, but at some point, at somewhere around that spot, it was going to happen, right? It's
Yeah,
not like those guys should have fallen to the third or fourth round.
no.
It's just where they were picking. Those are gambles. What about you?
No, I would agree with that. Those two would be the one. Well, I mean, Daniels and Lamar, would be the ones that stuck out to me. Even though I had to consider at least Lamar in the first round where I was. Um,
But they're also league winners, right? I mean, literally,
yeah,
Lamar Jackson
yeah,
and Jade Daniels have the talent to win your league this year. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So,
Absolutely. So, I mean, the biggest, not really concern, but I guess surprise to me would have been that 101, that first overall pick.
yeah.
I mean, if given the first overall pick and you could tell me, I know somebody who's consistent, I know somebody who is, more of an Iron Man in this league, and it's going to be a top quarterback in fantasy in Josh Allen, I would have just stamped in he's number 101. Cool, let's move on to 102 and start the draft truly. But with Chad picking Drake May first overall, again, love Drake May, North Carolina guy, was fantastic on my fantasy teams last year where I had him and I took him wherever I absolutely could. I just feel like the offense is definitely improved. You would think with AJ Brown, but you know, Josh Allen, we've
There's still
seen
a
do
little bit
this.
of, yeah, it's
Josh
tough.
Allen, we've seen do this for multiple years in a row. Drake May coming out and just doing it once. I mean, that's where they start. So I can't sit there and say Drake May can't repeat his performance. But I also get the fact that he's younger, so that definitely helps. As we can see, and we'll look at it, later. Drake May no longer on his team because he decided to make that change.
And it
As
makes me wonder too. I think that was a pre-draft agreement, so it does
Yeah,
make me wonder if they had no trade agreement. I'd be curious where Chad would have gone.
yeah.
I wonder, does he take Allen at that point? We know Bryce is a Patriots fan, so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and I mean, again, the dynasty outlook is very different. I mean, Chad essentially picked up Jamar and A Chain for Drake May and Zay Flowers, so I feel like again that definitely helps the outlook of the team. Um, if that was something that they agreed upon, or before the draft, that makes sense. If not, I mean, I still think that Chad probably goes Josh Allen there.
yeah.
But the first round to me played out, kind of how as expected to a degree. I mean, some of us in the middle here took non-quarterback players, with you being one and myself being one.
That's what I was going to ask you about. How I think some people were a little shocked at running backs going that early, while others weren't. Again, this is so many of ours first dynasty leagues. It doesn't seem like many in the league have a ton of experience with that. Kyle maybe a little bit. But in a lot of mocks, I kind of was saying, again, I didn't do a lot of deep research. The only two running backs that really went in the first round were those two, and then that was it. I mean, literally look when the next
Yeah.
running backs are taken, mid round two, right? So it's kind of it's interesting when leagues start dynasty leagues too, because that matters, right? If this
Yep.
league starts 3 years from now, Bajan and Jameer Gibbs, even if they've been great, probably don't go this high, but they're both young, 24 years old, like Jake May, 24. If this draft was in 3 years, Josh Allen probably doesn't go that high, being 32, right? So it always matters when you start it. And there was part of me that said this is the perfect time to get a running back at that age because, like, I don't know. That's where I just felt that. Were you surprised at the running backs going that early? Did you think they go a little later?
No, just given the look of the league, and again, in a redraft league, those are number one and number two picks. Really, they're going to go in the top
Yeah,
three. The position is still a premium, and if you look at your team and Tyler's team, and we can kind of look at it a little bit later, is that the breakdown of each team is very different. So, where one team, I guess we can look at it just right now, where one team went hero running back with Jameer Gibbs, your next running back with Derrick Henry, yeah, he went in round 7 because of his age.
right.
Next year, Tyler may be in a position where he has Gibbs, and then maybe Mason's not even on the Vikings, Gainwell still on the Buccaneers. I mean, like you're relying on committee backfields, and there's just again the outlook of the league itself. A lot of backfields are committees, so you really need to be on the right side of them. Whereas to you, I mean, you really went in a sense, I guess, a hero quarterback look where you have Jalen Hurts, a top tier quarterback. You waited, you grabbed Donald because he was that guy there who was
I felt like the
the
tiers
next best
dropped off
player.
kind of right
Yeah,
after
yeah,
Donald.
and we can look at it too. I mean, if you look at here, Darnold, the next quarterback taken is CJ Stroud, many picks later. So I would say the same. I mean, Stafford obviously I think would be in my
Sure.
mind. Again, it depends because Darnold's going to be playing for at least the next 3 years. Stafford may only play for the next year. But it just shows that, yeah, you started your team off with a stud running back, both you and Tyler, and then your team outlooks look very different. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I can see similarities where while you have only, I mean, you have four running backs who are going to be like workhorses, and they're going to have that workload there. Tyler has two that are going to do it. He has
Yeah.
two solid quarterbacks. To me, just those two teams comparatively, the receivers, while he picked Rasheed Rice early and Terry McLaurin early, are kind of in the same realm. I mean, I don't love either one, just kind of looking at the way it broke down. And you're kind of, at the mercy of the draft, but you have the upper hand when it comes to running backs. I would say he has an upper hand when it comes to the quarterbacks in relation to what he has. But you know, every team, and you're gonna see it, is going to struggle at one point to one degree or another, where both your
Yeah.
receivers, they're not bad. They've been proven receivers, very boomer bust. You're aware of that. Tyler's aware of that. just kind of how it all works out.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. I know we'll dive like just looking at some of the draft. I know we're not going to touch on everything, but like seeing when certain young guys got taken. I mean, seeing Tyson and Luther Burden and guys like that taken, Carnell Tate, right? Taken in front of guys even like, um, Brian Thomas, who came off a big year a couple years ago and then kind of fell off. Jamison Williams has been an 1,000 yard receiver. Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, right? It is kind of interesting to see like where some of these guys go. Where do you go for the young over the more veteran guy, and stuff like that? Because it does make even early in the second round, right? Neighbors and CD Lamb, there's a little bit of an age difference there. Not much. CD Lamb's right in the prime of his career, but Neighbors is what, 22, 23. Do you probably trust CD Lamb more the next couple years, not really having any injury? Sure, a little bit, but they were drafted right next to each other. Also interesting, I think too. Jeremiah Love was literally the third running back taken. GNT, another young running back taken right after him. And you got guys like Jonathan Taylor, CMC, Barkley. That could be better fantasy running backs this year, maybe. There's a whole season to play, but it is interesting to kind of see where they fell in the board. I think that made it
Yeah.
interesting. Um, was there any looking at the teams? I know you mentioned it earlier. I don't think anyone's punting, right? Everyone did draft to hopefully be good, right? I think we can all agree with that. Nobody was like, I'm completely playing for the
Yeah.
future. But is there a team that you noticed from looking at the roster, maybe the way they drafted early, middle, late, whatever? Is there a team that you could see really took this dynasty mindset and said, I'm going to draft kind of youngish and ride with that, and try to stay away from more veteran guys? Is there a team that really drafted young in your mind?
Yeah, like I would have thought that. I mean, just basing off the first couple rounds, I would say probably the first five or six. Um, Kyle sticks out. Again, you go JSN, who's still relatively
Yeah.
young, just coming off of a very good fantasy year. Brock Bowers, Tetiora, Brock Purdy, whatever. That's your, he's locked in that role. He's maybe not young, but he's going to be your QB1 for a while. Luther Burden. So like, out of those first five picks there, four of those guys are in the first 4 or 5 years. I think it is four, right, for JSN, the first 4 years of their careers,
Yeah.
right? You're just kind of getting into your prime there, or you're just coming off your rookie season, really. So Kyle took that approach. I feel like looking at his roster full fledged, like I don't think his roster is bad. I do think that Kyle may feel the effects of that later on down the road, but
Yeah. Because
it,
you got to hope for a lot of these guys to take another step,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Burden, Teuton, and uh, in a sense, kind of Purdy, McMillan. I mean, a great year last year, but I mean, these are up and coming guys that were. I mean, McMillan was theoretically taken in front of a lot of talented receivers. So
yeah, yeah. So I would say like Kyle to me sticks out. Um, Again, he may feel the effects down the road, but uh, he's also betting on dudes kind of just breaking out like Tuden, Foskey
yeah,
Merritt, Stribling. If those guys do pan out and they do, break out, your team's going to be set for the next, 4 or 5 years, and you're going to be happy with how you played out.
now your
So
team, interestingly, I was going to say your team early. I feel like you did go. You were like Puka's pretty young. How old is he? 26, 25? I
yeah, I
mean,
think he's
he's
20. I think
young,
he's
right?
turning. I think he's 20, maybe turning 27. I think we're 26. And 25.6, something crazy.
Yeah, so he's
Yeah,
literally right in his prime. That's still very, very young. Gianti's in his second year, obviously. Jordan Love is in the prime of his career. And then you kind of went interesting, right? You first three picks, I feel like core, hopefully for a long time. You're hoping probably 5+ years on most of those guys, right? And then you kind of went interesting where you went AJ Brown, probably 28, 29, Baker 30, DJ Moore 30, David Montgomery getting up close to 30. Then your next five picks, you kind of went for more stable count on veterans. What was your kind of thoughts and strategy there?
yeah. I
Were
mean,
you
I
just kind of
took the
were you kind
approach
of going
where
best available? Were you going like how your fit
yeah,
team
it was
was?
more so like tears where tears fall off. I mean, I wasn't gonna just the age took the precedence. Obviously, Puka being Puka, he's turning 26, he's gonna be fine. Janty being the second year, again, you're gonna be, my RB1 for the foreseeable future. And then Love, obviously, again, quarterbacks play for what seems to be forever now. So as long as you're healthy and can perform, I have a good, 6 8 years out of him for all I know.
Yeah,
But just to me, the way the draft broke down too at that point, someone like a McCaffrey, it's a stud. It's someone who can carry your team to win a championship. And that's what we're all here for. So it was more so finding the balance of lay out your foundation of some young players you can count on, then just grab the best available players. I mean, there were times where obviously I think I felt like myself, um, I guess kind of FOMO when it comes to quarterbacks. That's why I have a Baker Mayfield, just because I'm like, well, you wait too long and you're gonna feel bad about it. But even
Yeah.
the guys drafted after him, Jalen Waddle, Roma Dunze, Terry McLaurin, Jameson Williams, those guys aren't guarantees. They're players who can, again, we've seen Waddle, McLaurin, Williams all do well in a season. But I mean, just to me, finding balance was my thought process, because then you can go one way or the other. If your team is good, obviously you have young pieces that you can kind of utilize to bolster your team in that first year. If it doesn't go well, I have good pieces like an AJ Brown or a McCaffrey that can trade somewhere, um, to a team that will give up some draft
Yeah.
picks. So, in my mind, I'm like, I want to be competitive. I do like my team a lot, but I did find myself being more middling than anything else, just to give myself the ability to adapt to, if you're winning, you're winning, you can buy. If you're losing, you're losing, you can sell.
Yeah.
So there was that. And I'll kind of bounce it back to you, as looking at your team, and obviously you went very running back heavy. I'll give you the floor here to explain your approach there. Was it at that point more best player available, or did you just think, supply and demand, I have the RBs, people will be coming,
Yeah.
and they already are coming.
Yeah.
That way you can kind of just adapt that way.
It's been really interesting because obviously, as we know, in the keeper league, I've done okay the last couple years, but in the redraft league, I've obviously been awful. I've famously always been a running back first kind of guy, even as fantasy not has shifted, but fantasy's just changed. I think over the last 5 or 6 years, where the pass catcher, it used to be the running back bell cows were the sure bets, right? Now it's I feel like in a weird way, it's like, no, it's the 100 catch receivers that are going to get 12, 1,300 yards that are the surefire bets. So fantasy's just changed, and I've always been a running back heavy guy, and there was part of me that almost wanted to slap myself for doing it again. But the way things laid and the way things happened, I picked pick three because I felt like, you know what? I want Gibbs or Robinson, and if for some weird reason they go 1-2, I would have Josh Allen and I'd still have the best quarterback in the league. That was kind of my mindset on picking pick three. But to answer your question about how the running backs came to be, I kind of said it a little bit earlier, but Bajan's literally right in his prime. Brees Hall is, and you could even argue a little bit before your prime. Whenever you consider your running back prime, I don't know what you would consider it, but 24 years old. Jonathan Taylor is literally 27 in his prime. Brees Hall, 25. Judkins, second year player. So I kind of looked at it as what you mentioned, a little bit of a supply and demand thing, because it got to the point where the board was going, and it's like, I don't want to take a Bo Nix or an A Chain. I like Taylor more. I just think whether it's 2, 3, and then it kind of came around again, and it's like, man, I don't really want to take Dak or Carnell Tate. I mean, honestly, I was like, Mendoza, I feel like that's a little early. Zay Flower. I'm like, fuck it, I'll take Brees Hall. I mean, he's been a pretty good fantasy player for the last couple of years. And it wrapped back to me, and I'm like, hey, let's might as well complete the circle and get a bell. One of really, truly, when you look at who's drafted after him, outside of maybe Barkley and maybe Kyron, although I think that job's a little bit more of like a share with Corum. Again, probably the last true bell cow running back in the league, and I know he's still got a lot to prove, but I think it was a mixture of supply and demand. It was a mixture of getting these running backs right at the right age. I don't think I would feel good if they were all 27 or 28, but it just kind of laid out that way, and it's either going to be a really big gamble and a risk, and it's not going to pay off, and I'm going to look like an idiot, like some people think I'm going to be. I mean, people were literally saying my strategy essentially wasn't good in the draft, and I get it. I'm especially in a dynasty league, but I just felt like it made sense kind of where I was and where the board was. And I know Tyler made fun of me, but truthfully, in my first 5 picks, I have like 50 rushing touchdowns right there. I mean, on good years, right? Bajan should be 10 minimum. JT in a good year should be 10 minimum. Brees Hall and Judkins should get around that amount. And Jalen Hurts just rushing gets around that. So I really feel like I've set up a good core. Now, could two of them tear their ACL in the next year, year and a half? They could, but I don't know. It was risky. You don't see it much. Did you like my strategy or not? I mean, you could tear it up if you need to.
No, I mean, I didn't dislike it. I think that again, running back is again supply and demand. If you have them, they're gonna be, few and far between. It was kind of like the approach that Bryce took in a sense, where I mean, if
Yeah.
all of his receivers were healthy, he has, more of a supply for anybody who needs a receiver. I think that the receiver market, however, this is gonna be a discussion for another day, is not diluted, but you have more options out there when it comes to
Yeah.
running backs. Either, you know, you can get committee guys, and like I mean, for instance, Ramondre Stevenson in the 10th round for me. I liked that pick a lot because I mean, A, Travion Henderson's reports coming out of camp weren't fantastic. B, they paid this man, so they're not gonna not play him. So he's definitely a playable player for me. I can start him, in a given week, and he's in a good offense. Yeah, I'm doubling down with AJ Brown in a sense too, but I mean, guys like that and committee backs are going to be usable. But if Ramondre was my RB2, I'm not feeling great about it now. If you have a Bijan, a Jonathan Taylor, a Brees Hall, a
When you
Judkins,
mentioned Bryce too, and the interesting is Bryce kind of took the opposite strategy of me
yeah,
because if you notice, A Chain is on Chad's team. Bryce's RB1 is literally ATN and
that
then it's
is true.
Monungai.
That is
I
true.
mean,
And looking at that, yeah, and he did get Zay Flowers. So again, he's looking at the receivers and the running backs and or sorry, the quarterbacks. Different approach. Again, supply and demand. So I feel like your approach, I didn't obviously hate it. The running backs are on your team. They're definitely not gonna stay there though, just because I feel like down the road, you're gonna probably get tired of if you have a 3 week span of Jameson, because we saw, trust me, I've had him on a bunch
yeah.
of rosters last
Okay.
year. We saw that man get
We're
zero.
bust, like you guys were
Saw that
saying,
man
right?
get zero way too often. Metcalf with someone in his way with Pittman, Quentin Johnston again. He's somebody who can give
We're
you,
bust.
1.2. So you might, I think to begin the year, it's a solid roster to have. I also believe that, as you move forward into year 2, year 3, it won't remain the same. However, having these workhorse backs in their primes, it's better to have them than to not. And again, it gives you any ammunition to again take the same approach as I would in a balanced way, where if you're losing, cool, you can trade them off for assets that are a receiver or draft picks or anything of that nature. And I also feel like too, it plays into a way where I think that even looking at it, and I'll kind of segue into it this way, with the NFL rosters the way that they are and bringing in players, a lot of the receivers coming into systems tend to get more, I guess,
Yeah.
eyes on them when it comes to fantasy outlooks than the running backs, because a lot of teams, unless you're a Janty or a Jeremiah Love, I mean, even Jadarian Price, for instance, if he was on a team that had a healthy Charbonnet, I think that's vastly different, and he's looked at, a little bit lesser. But the receivers are aplenty, so you can kind of replenish that way. In a rookie draft, running back wise, it's difficult because if you look at, for instance,
Everyone's
someone
got
like,
handcuffs or everyone's got the
yeah, even
backups
look
and
at something like
everyone's got the
Jonathan Brooks. I mean, he was a 9th round pick here. This is somebody who came into the league, tore his ACL, has really not played for Carolina, but because Chuba Hubbard's hurt in camp, his name is jumping up boards. He's somebody that, you can kind of rely on in a dynasty league.
yeah.
And Spelly has to. I mean, it's his RB2 essentially, right? Like if you look at his roster, he's got Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Brooks, J.K. Dobbins, the third string running back for the Chiefs, again, in a good offense. So like things like, and like that's what's going to be important down the road, is like dudes like that, um, who can make waves, a year or two down the road. You're going to want to be early on them. Um, so the landscape there, I feel like where you took is it's easier to get the receivers than it is to get those,
Yeah.
top tier running backs who actually are vying for, a good amount of the snaps.
Well, I think it's interesting too, and again, I put this in the chat, and I think Kyle disagreed a little bit, and we've never done Dynasty leagues before, so I guess we'll see. He's got a little bit more experience than me, but I also feel like, and I'm a big NFL draft guy. I watch the NFL draft and all this kinds of stuff, right? I honestly feel like yes, you do have those sometimes running backs that go in the top 5 or top 10, maybe tail end of the first, but we know it's famous that running backs don't typically go in the first round, right? I think there's a little bit more of that coming back now with teams being more run heavy and stuff like that, but traditionally it's very rare we see that bona fide, oh, can't miss running back prospect, right? We've kind of had it in the last couple years with GNT and Love. I get that, but I feel like if we look back on the last 10 years of drafts, there's probably on average 4 to 5, maybe 6 receivers in some cases being taken in the first round, while there's zero in some cases, or 1 or 2 running backs. Okay. Now, I do think a lot of NFL teams find good running backs in the third and fourth rounds, right? But when we do our rookie drafts next year, the year after that, the year after that, right? I'm going to probably say most of the picks are either going to be quarterbacks or they're going to be receivers, right? Because unless you're getting that Jeremiah Love, that GNT, that Jadarian Price, yes, you're going to find those fiddled in there. So I guess my point is I think it's easier to replace and get receivers in the future than it is to find that maybe once in a while running back that comes along. And that's why I kind of also looked at that as my strategy. I didn't go in thinking I'm going to take 4 running backs in the first 5 rounds, but again, like you mentioned, the way the board was going, I just truly didn't like the receivers that were coming back to me. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I think I'm going to be able to replace receivers quicker than running backs. And I wonder, I guess, it'll see what happens in the future. But that was kind of my way of looking at it. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the running back committees too, and it's interesting, right? Swift went end of round 7, Monongai middle of round 5, not far off. You mentioned Brooks going round 9. Hubbard went round 9 as well. So it's interesting to see guys that are in true committees going in the same round, while you still have receivers like Alec Pierce, who had 1,000 yards last year, DK Metcalf, who almost had 1,000 yards, Quentin Johnson, who's had a couple 1,000 yard seasons. So it goes to show to me, like you said, it seems like it's easier to find at least serviceable receivers later, even if they're 700 yard and 5 touchdown guys. It's a lot harder to find those running backs that you can just throw in there that are 700 rushing yards and 7, 8 touchdown guys. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just feel like it's easier to find the length in the receiver.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense, and I mean that's why again, and I think that goes just back to the age-old tale of running backs are your goal in fantasy.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks here obviously are more important, but like even me looking at the quarterbacks going into next year, um, if your team is bad, are you a quarterback away? You might be, but if you're someone, for instance, say I don't really want to throw anybody out there, but just say you're Bryce. Your two quarterbacks are Drake May and Patrick Mahomes. Say your team fails. I don't think that Bryce's team is set up to fail. I don't think anyone's team necessarily is set up to fail because, again, the foundations are set. We don't really know. But
Right.
so say Bryce somehow, some way comes out with a first overall pick. Your
That could be
quarterbacks
an
are locked
interesting
in
trade
Drake May,
piece.
Patrick Mahomes. You know, you're likely going to trade that pick, I would think, but say he keeps it and you're not
You
in
got
that
you
in
got
that same
options, right?
dilemma.
Then at that
Like
point
that's
you
what I
could trade
mean.
him Mahomes, right? I mean,
Like
who knows?
you can trade a Mahomes, you can trade a May, you can trade that first overall pick. Like that's going to change a lot, and I think the draft classes will dictate, the needs of teams, and they're going to come calling for those picks. So I mean, eh, those play a big role. But like, if I'm Bryce, do I, and I somehow somebody get stuck with this pick because that's also something that people can do. Just say, you know what, buddy, no. I'm not trading for that. Yeah, I need this quarterback, but are you really going to draft a third quarterback that you can't start every week and just stash him?
Right.
Whenever Mahomes' contract runs out in 8 years or Drake May's in 10, right? Like you're gonna have to take those, those make those decisions. And I mean, it's a viable one to do. I mean, if I'm in that scenario, I'm not taking a quarterback there. So, who do you fall back on? And again, the draft classes are gonna kind of change the landscape of things as well. But
Yeah.
I think that truly in dynasties too, and people say that just it's a very cliche thing is drafts are always won in the later rounds. In the
Hmm.
dynasty, I feel like you don't really win a draft. You're setting yourself up for success later on. But looking at these players that are drafted kind of, I would say round 13 and down, I'll kind of go on it and just give you a chance to look at the board quickly. I want to know who your favorite pick round 13 and down was and why. Um, for me, I would say that, I mean, honorable mentions. I would say Jake Ferguson, just because of the landscape there. It's a solid tight end. Did Jay need him? No, he has Tyler Warren, but again, supply and demand that people may want. And that again plays a role when it comes to your team and the drawing up of it. But my favorite pick, I would say 13 and below, would be round 15 right here for Tyler. Zachariah Branch. I think that team, that Falcons team, unfortunately, the offense is going to be pretty decent. Um, Drake London really hasn't had a number two. And I feel like in the landscape of fantasy, a lot of number twos are becoming viable, borderline wide receiver ones for teams. T. Higgins, for instance, that's somebody who in a high octane offense, yeah, they need a quarterback still, but like if you have somebody who can support two receivers and a running back, which you can in Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, even, and then obviously Zachariah Branch, I think that's a pretty good dart throw for someone like that. Again, these players are essentially free, but that's somebody that he can definitely build on, especially with his receiving room being kind of up in the air. I would say that that's my favorite pick from probably around 13 and below.
Yeah, it's tough because I mean, really, when we're looking around 13 and below, we're talking even in a redraft league, right? We're talking starting to be the bottom of the bench. So these are true, like, can these guys make or break it? You mentioned the Ferguson one earlier. For how long teams waited on tight ends, I was actually really surprised that like pretty much in his prime, tight end on a team that always seems to be throwing the ball. Dak Prescott always seems to have over 4,000 yards. It does it does seem surprising that that would happen. But again, I could see where people are like, "Yeah, there's a bunch of tight ends still there or whatever." I could see that. It's not like as coveted. So the pick I look at, and again, it's actually kind of changed in the last few days because of a signing. Um, I love Cam Scatabo. He's really fun to watch play. But I don't know if I would have drafted him as early as he was, and I don't know how much longevity or leash he has being that true guy, simply because I think I know Harbaugh runs the ball a ton. He's going to use a lot of his running backs. Najee Harris just signed with the Giants, but I did like that Tyrone Tracy pick by Chad in the 13th round, just because Tracy did finish as a top 30-ish, I think 32 running back last year. Um, I felt like his role with Scatabo was closer to 50-50 than people really thought, with Scatabo maybe being a little bit more of the, bell cow kind of guy. But again, they signed Najee Harris the last few days. Who knows? He's returning from an Achilles. But really we're kind of just throwing darts at the board here. But I think that Tyrone Tracy one is an interesting one. And just for winning this year, again, I don't know how great he's gonna be. He's getting older. But Alvin Kamara was an interesting one as well in round 16, I felt. But it's tough, right? Because even Dallas Goedert, round 17, tight end. He was tight end two last year, and he went in round 17. So there are some curious ones there, but it's really tough to nail who, because we're really starting to throw darts at the board there and just kind of hoping for someone to break free from the pack.
Oh yeah, and again, those will change quite a bit
Yeah.
as we
It'll be
move
interesting to look
forward.
at this, right, a year or two from now and see like, wow, that dude was in the 19th round. Because again, it's not like we redo this, right? Like if someone that pops off for a team, let's pretend, Marquise Brown just randomly pops off for you. You got him in round whatever, 19. I mean, those can be like league winning moves. It's not like these guys are on the waiver wire. We haven't even really talked about the waiver wire, but
Yeah,
in a dynasty league, I'm assuming there really isn't going to be much on the wire. And if you drop someone, you better be sure you're making the right call. You don't want to
yeah,
be someone out earlier, letting go someone too quick. I mean, if you have Carson Beck on your team, I'm not a big Carson Beck fan. I don't think he's going to be great in the NFL. Looked great in preseason. Simpkins looked great in preseason for the Rams, right? They might not play a single down this year, but you really can't cut them, right? Because there's a opportunity at them being the future. I could see a world, I'm sure you can too. You drafted them where the Cardinals suck, they're 0-5, and Beck's the quarterback by week 6.
yeah,
So
yeah. And
it makes it interesting.
things like that too. I mean, you have to take into consideration. I mean, and that's where you can look at the quarterbacks drafted that late. Beck, McCarthy, Klubnik, you know,
Aller,
Allard. Like you have to, they have to perform so well too. Because if the Cardinals are that bad to where Beck is the starter by week 6, for them not to draft someone coming out like an Archie Manning,
exactly, and that's where you gotta, yeah,
you have to, you're kind of
you
fighting
gotta show
for,
something.
yeah, you're fighting, not you're fighting for your job, but you're not just fighting within that roster, you're fighting college kids at that regard. And I can see a world like obviously where Beck himself isn't fantastic, or sorry, isn't the starter next year, even if he is good. just
Yeah,
because
kind of like Jimmy Clausen back in the day, right?
oh,
Oh,
trust me,
we
I
got the number
know,
one pick.
I
Now
know.
we got Cam Newton. Yeah.
That's the thing, and I went to a war. And I'm like, oh, I like Jimmy, give him another
Yep.
chance, but like,
Because he
uh,
was a rookie.
he
Yeah.
was a rookie, so like, you got to give them a longer leash. But then a decade later, Jimmy did nothing in the NFL, and obviously because he got pushed out. But like Cam, borderline Hall of Fame quarterback in some people's mind. But like he revolutionized the game. Like he was definitely a
Yep.
game changer. He's a reason why that team was relevant during those times.
Yeah, and
So yeah,
oh, go ahead.
no, you're good.
I was gonna say, and it's interesting too because I mean, just for fun, when you were talking, I looked at, and again, we're hell 8 months away from the draft. We have a whole college season to play. Who knows? These early mocks sometimes hit, sometimes they don't. But to see like in a lot of these mocks, in the top 10 picks, almost every single one I saw, minimum had four quarterbacks going in the top 10. I mean, it's going to be a loaded quarterback class year, and we don't know if that's going to stay that way. We don't know what that's going to turn into. Usually, there's someone out of left field that comes in and rises to the ranks too. But and again, it makes you wonder: did some people draft like that? Did Chad go, "Hey, I'll draft Matt Stafford this year. That's fine. I'll win. That'll help me win this year. My team will
Yep.
be great." And then, hey, next year I'll get someone like that. So, moving forward, the rookie drafts, and like I said, 1-1 is Arch Manning, maybe. Again, who knows? Whoever the
Yep.
top Dante Moore, Mensa, whoever it ends up being, 1-1 could look a lot different than 1-5. And in some ways, I could see people next year going, actually, I like 1-4 because I actually like this guy better than the three quarterbacks.
Yep.
It's all a crapshoot, right? We're not going to know any more than the NFL scouts do.
Yep.
So it's going to be really fun on those loaded rookie classes and throwing Jeremiah Smith coming out next year, right? Next year is shaping up to be a loaded rookie class, and it's going to be fun to kind of see how
Yeah.
people play with that,
Yeah,
you know?
it's gonna be interesting to see how you navigate it. And again, I'm pretty excited to just to see how things play out, the landscape of the league, how it changes year to year. Because like, again, something I think that um not to get too long-winded, but is like a pain point for myself on my team and likely some others is that again, the quarterback position being so important and not having two top tier guys, you kind of think you're behind the eight ball. But there's, again, a good crop of quarterbacks coming into the league. So that will change the landscape of some of these teams. And B, if you look at, someone like a Malik Willis, you never know truly who is,
Yeah.
a
Who
couple
knows?
starts away from being fantasy relevant. Do I think Malik Willis is a fantastic quarterback? No, I didn't want him. I didn't want him to get drafted by the Panthers when he did get drafted by the Titans. Do I think that he's, a good quarterback and can help you in fantasy? Yes. He did it last year with the Packers. I mean, it's just a matter of finding the right system, people who believe in you. And again, like nothing's saying that, someone like Michael Penix, should
Yeah.
they move on from
Who
Tua
knows?
and Penix, he can't go somewhere else and play well under the right guidance. Again, same with
Even
someone
a
like
Kyler Murray, I think on Minnesota
yeah,
is an interesting fantasy option where the NFC North is really, really loaded. I could see a world where Minnesota gets 8, 9, 10 wins, and Kyler Murray's going to run
yep,
around and do something fantasy. And it's not like he's in the back end of his career. What is he, 27, 28? So it kind of makes it interesting to kind of see that.
yep,
29. He's
29.
starting to get there, right?
He's 20,
Um,
and that's the thing too. Like looking at just again that position in particular, there's so much that can change year to year. Kyler cannot be a Viking next year. Kyler could be a Viking next year and get locked up long term because they play well enough and they don't
right.
draft high enough to be able to grab somebody. Um, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. I think that, both of those guys, and we saw CJ Stroud's, really good rookie season. He's kind of crashed and burned a little bit in the last couple of
Yeah.
years. These guys are people that these franchises have to commit to
Even
in
a
the
Tyler
next year
Shough,
or
right?
two.
If the Saints do bad, and again, I know he showed promise last year, but by the way, he's also like 26. He was a younger rookie
Yeah.
than people think. But Tyler Shough, who's to say they don't go 3-14 and take one of these guys coming out? And then you just used an eighth round draft pick on him. I mean, those are possibilities. You just mentioned Stroud. You're a Panthers fan, Krim. If the Panthers fall apart and for some reason go 4-13 this year and they don't pick up the Bryce Young op, I mean, there is a world where the Panthers don't have Bryce Young as their quarterback next year, right? I'm not
Yep.
saying it's likely, but it's not. I don't think it's totally out of the
No,
realm of
no.
possibilities.
And I think that too, like it goes hand in hand with yes, our league is you can't stress it enough where quarterbacks are very, very important to your team as a fantasy team, the NFL teams as NFL teams. And I feel like a lot of teams now are more likely to just kind of continue with what they have and see if it doesn't just pop
Yeah.
off like a Bryce or a Stroud,
Yep.
than to pivot and kind of restart. So once you see a glimpse of something, yeah, it's a lot that teams will hold on, and we'll hold on to that again. Beck, for instance, dude played well in a Hall of Fame game. I'm like, okay, I can see a world where he starts for a couple of games and that'll help me down the road. Um, but outside of that too, like you can look at that position as you only really need one. Yeah, it's a super flex league, but as long as you have one, and if you feel as if there's positional players who are better, put them in. You don't
Yeah.
have to prioritize it. I know it is the move, I would say, if it makes sense. And it did in the back half of the draft, and it did in the first couple of picks to take those elite guys. But much like receivers, if it can be said for any position, once you're out of those elite tiers of players, kind
Yeah.
of all muddled together. Um, but it'll be interesting to see just kind of how quick teams are to kind of pull the plug too, on things any given year, because like you said, it's not no one's here built to lose. But I also think that because it's a league in which we're paying into, you kind of have to limit yourself when it comes to rebuilding and turning it around. You can't really be like, oh, I'm 2 years away from being elite. I feel like people are gonna look for those windows where they might be bad for 3 months or 2 months. They're gonna try to swing that in the momentum of that in their favor going into next year pretty quickly. I feel like where we look at the baseball league sometimes, where again you have dudes for a certain amount of time, you can look at, okay, I can, I'll pick up this A, he'll be good for the next 3 years. Cool.
Yeah.
These are guys that you're betting on for their career. Like you don't
Yeah.
have,
And
you
shelf
know,
lives in football can be short where all of a sudden it turns quick, you know?
yeah, yeah. So it's going to be interesting as hell to see when things go poorly. Do people just kind of strap in and just say, I like my team. I'm riding it out. The core is there. Because I would say we all have a core in place. That's a given. We all
Yeah.
came out of that draft with a core that we either liked and drafted or just fell to us. You may not love it, but it's what you have. So it's intriguing to kind of just see again how quick people are to trade off of players, and also in how willing people are to buy. Because if someone like a Kyler Murray, plays 4 weeks, and Kyle again, who is someone who will sell high on every possible player, and whether it's Tetiora, Brock, Kyler Murray, Travis Hunter, Marshawn Lloyd, like if he has the opportunity to sell high on somebody, he's gonna do that. And is that there at somebody at some point in time willing to buy at that peak? It's again different, very different dynamic, and I feel like while trades it won't be flying. Um, I'm interested in seeing how people go about their roster and maneuvering things as we move
Yep.
along, just because it's gonna be very different mindsets and kind of thoughts that you're gonna have about it, just because you're thinking so far ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And like I said, it's the only time we'll ever do a draft, and that's why when I look at Dynasty mock drafts, it's always interesting because it's like, how do you even like prepare for these? Because it's literally a one-time thing. You don't know how other people in your league are going to draft. You don't know what they're going to do. You can maybe have up tendencies, but even they're going to be thinking different because it's a Dynasty draft, all that kind of thing. I know you mentioned Kyle's team as a team that drafted pretty young earlier, and they definitely did. Another team I want to kind of highlight quick, just to because I think they really bought into this dynasty aspect of drafting young guys. I think the new guy, our buddy Jay. I mean, to go Amon Ra, 26, Jeremiah Love, rookie 21, Pickens is 25, Warren is 24, second year, Henderson is 23, second year, Jadarian Price is a rookie 22, Lemon is a rookie 22, Shucken is in his second year. I mean, we're talking like he very much, I think, committed to taking young guys. And at the end of the day, I still think his team doesn't look bad. Obviously, it's a little bit of a gamble going rookie running backs, but me being a Notre Dame fan, getting Love and Price, I'm a little envious. I'm a little jealous of what he's got going on over there. I think that's another team to kind of highlight that really did focus young and draft guys that can maybe be there for a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, we're not going to go through all these teams.
Right.
We can probably, wrap things up here very, very
Sure.
soon. Just to kind of close things out. Uh, Looking at the board, looking at the teams, not looking at your own team because I feel like you're going to feel, good about your own draft. Who do you think came out looking? I wouldn't say the best because again, that's kind of subjective. But whose
Yeah.
draft did you like outside of your own the most?
Man, it's tough because I think the teams 8 through 12 that or 9 through 12, I should say, that almost felt like they had to double up on quarterbacks. I think they had to do that, but obviously because they didn't get those skill position players, when we look at teams, it's going to be tough to kind of like highlight those teams and be like, yeah, those teams are really, really good. So it's tough because again, right at round 6 or 7 is again right when teams kind of you start having to not take shots on guys, but you really are starting to need some of those young guys, some rookies to kind of break out and be good. Weirdly enough, I do think your team this year is very much set up to win this year. Like I said, I don't know if McCaffrey is going to be in the league even 2 years from now. AJ Brown's obviously like right in his prime, probably more on the back end, being 29. DJ Moore, another one. So I do think your team, kind of similar, weirdly to mine, with how running back heavy I am. I don't think we're going to have much of a problem this year. But a team that I like based on how they drafted, although it kind of a little bit went against what they did, and again, I've not looked at all the teams yet, but I did like what Jordan did with his first kind of 5 picks too. I know I said Lamar Jackson's older, but when you just straight up look at a fantasy team that can win this year, I think Lamar, JJ, Collins, Kenneth Walker being on that team, Devontae Smith. After that, who knows? I think there's a lot of shots he started taking after that. But in terms of like the first 5 picks, that does stand out a little bit. It's just tough to rank those other teams that went 2 quarterbacks heavy because Drake's first skill player is Lad McConkey. Dane's first skill player, not bad, but James Cook, right? Peter's first skill player, I'm a Bears fan, is Colston Loveland, right? So it's kind of hard to totally pick that. But part of me also kind of wants to go back to Jay, even though he drafted a lot of young players. I think that could actually be a pretty damn good fantasy team this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that looking at the first chunk of teams, 1 to 4, you have your usual suspects.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, we kind of have, we're picking up pieces that we see fit as they fall to us, letting the draft kind of happen. A team I really like, I would say going into things and kind of even long term would be Dana's team. I do like
Okay.
the Joe Burrow and the Jackson Dart. If they're healthy, obviously, you're gonna
Sure.
have a
Yeah.
great time with those two. You're not ever gonna need to take them outside of bye weeks. I like where he started with James Cook. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but your RB1 being in a good offense is going to be very solid. Olave, unfortunately, had a good year last year. Fuck the Saints. But Bucky Irving, he's iffy like that, and that's the only most that's the iffiest pick out of your first, I would say 7 or 8. That I don't hate it. T Higgins again, you have that stack, so I'm a sucker for
Sure.
a good
That's
fantasy
fine.
stack. Fannin showed us that he can do it, that do it, and he did it last year. I do like Dana's like late picks too, like Wandale Robinson's a sneaky pick to me.
Yeah, I was hoping he came back to me. I might
Yeah, like he's
really
a
was.
sneaky pick to me. Ty Simpson again, like you're telling me you have Joe Burrow and you have Jackson Dart, even if they are fantastic and they both stay healthy, the moment Ty Simpson becomes the starter, and again, Sean McVay does a very good job of ushering in someone like that, especially under Stafford. That's going to be an elite offense for quite some time. You have some flexibility there now too to not only win now, but trade off a Joe Burrow or a Jackson Dart and just continue to retool. People obviously have pieces that they can move. I think that Dana's he's set up to be a solid team off rip, a solid team down the road. He may not love it himself, but I do think that his team is rounded out pretty well. Um,
Another one team I wanted to mention too is kind of on the complete opposite end of the draft, right? I know we talked about the trade earlier, but really when you break down Chad's team, having Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb, that to me, I mean, that's without he essentially drafted receiver, right? 1, 2.
yep.
Um, Chase CeeDee Lamb is the best combo in the league. No one else has that. I think the next closest you can look at is like a Pickens, a Monroe, a JJ Nico Collins, a Neighbors London is pretty good. But I'm taking Chase and CeeDee Lamb, right? Best combo to me in the draft. And then for him to be able to get kind of a hog in Hampton for the Chargers, who showed really good promise last year. You know they're going to run the ball a lot in that hardball offense. And then obviously in that trade, he got A Chain. And I know I personally was kind of trying to stay away from A Chain. Dolphins suck. I feel like he's a guy that could just get hurt. You know, but we know how explosive and how just absolutely nasty he can be. He's been a top five running back to back years. And the year before that, he was running back 24, playing 11 games, and he's only 24 years old. So we're talking a guy that's had 3 years in the league, has been a top 25 running back, top five the last 2 years. So for Chad to kind of roll out this draft and have Lamb, Chase, Hampton, and A Chain, he can win the league this year, and he's got the backups in Mendoza in the future. Oh, by the way, got Stafford late, league MVP, so he could sacrifice getting Mendoza. Some of the middle picks I wasn't thrilled with. Cam Ward, we'll see. Michael Wilson, we'll see. But the start of Chad's draft, easy to say being picked number one, but the start of Chad's draft is very, very impressive to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, looking at Chad's team again, it is a solid team, and I do think that most teams here are going to have their strengths and weaknesses, and we'll look
Yeah,
at it through different lenses. I mean,
yeah,
you're more so looking at Chad's skill positions and saying that they're some of the best in the league, and I would say, yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase, CD Lamb, um, HN are round one slash round two guys
yeah, right.
in
Yeah.
redraft leagues. Hampton's a round two guy for sure in redraft leagues. So like
So he's essentially
look,
got four guys that usually in a redraft go top
yeah,
two rounds,
yeah.
and
So
none of
like
them are old. You
no,
know.
and you're kind of putting all your eggs in that basket, which makes perfect sense. But when it comes to quarterback play, you have Stafford, yes, but
Yeah,
from there, can you really trust Mendoza or Ward? Because Mendoza, I don't think he's even going to start the season as a starter. Like he's going to sit back for a bit. They'll
yeah.
usher him in at some point. There's
He's
the
looking decent in
Raiders.
preseason, but it is preseason, right?
Yeah,
Who knows?
the Raiders look. They're going to want to get their return on investment pretty quick. But yeah, all the teams are going to look fairly balanced. We're going to have something we love about our
It
team,
is.
something
Yeah,
we
it's gonna be
dislike
really
about our
tough to
teams.
break them down.
It's again, it comes back to it's going to be very interesting to see where people weigh things. And I think that trading is going to be it's going to be harder just because of the group of people we have, and kind of where we stand, and knowing that these have ramifications down the road, years later. It's it won't be a ton of trading by any means, like we figured, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited to get things going.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited to look again at kind of at the back end of the draft too, because I know I kind of said how those guys didn't draft skill position players, but when you just mentioned looking long term, a guy like Peter drafting Caleb and Trevor Lawrence shouldn't even have to worry in best case scenario, right? And it's not even I think a gamble, but I mean he shouldn't really have to worry about even worrying about a quarterback for the next almost decade. I mean, right? I mean, at
yeah,
minimum, you would say 7 years. So I think it's kind of interesting to also look at it like that, where if his team sucks, you mentioned it earlier, his team sucks. Let's pretend he's the first or second pick in the draft and he doesn't need a quarterback. That's where that can get really interesting, where you can start trading. Again, I'm really curious to see how that starts looking for a league as time
yeah,
goes on.
yeah. I mean, again, like, kind of, as we close things out, there's going to be teams that are bad. That's a given. 6 teams make the playoffs. 6 teams don't.
Yeah,
Each team has, just the way the draft fell, a stud, some if not several, somewhere. So
yeah,
whether they kind of want to stick it out and be like, well, I believe in these guys, it was just a down year, or sell off and kind of grab what they can, it'll be very intriguing to see, because I think that some people may hold steady and it'll pay off. Others, if you're trying to sell, I think you want to turn it around very, very quickly, because never in a spot are people going to want to be not competitive. And that's where the balance is tough,
yeah,
because once we get into the thick of things, if you're going to be good, you're going to want to buy good players. If you're bad, you're going to sell your good players, but also try to find a fine line where you're selling them off but recouping back something that can be that same player, because the last thing you want to do is be paying $100 for the next 2 seasons, knowing that you have to then win the league the third year to make your money back,
Yeah.
that you've put into the team itself. So it's definitely an interesting dynamic. I'm excited to get things going. I just feel like it's going to be a lot of fun. I also feel like it's going to be more stressful than any of us can ever imagine.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, down the line, I mean, we can see some of it in baseball, the parity, and that's just, I mean, it's. I would say it's not a dynasty, but it's a little bit of a hybrid of a keeper slash dynasty, more keeper than it is. But it's interesting to see how parity gets in there. Who knows what this thing looks like 3, 4, 5 years from now if a team's really made a couple bad trades, couple bad years in a row, what that looks like. So I'm really curious to see. Is there any team real quick before we wrap up that jumps out at you? I know you said it's very balanced, but is there any team that kind of jumps out at you that you just go, oh man, I just did not like their draft?
I would say not really, because like everyone kind of has somebody that
Sure.
in the first couple of picks that I like. I think that after the trade, and again, I know I talked about Bryce's team having the edge when it comes to the receivers and the availability of those. I don't love his team. I don't
Yep, I
hate
was
it
gonna
because
say the same thing.
you do have a good starting point of Mahomes and Drake May. The
Right.
running backs, again, I can't sit here and say I weigh them higher than anything else because ETN and Managai can be viable for sure. But even the receivers you traded away Chase, you got Zay Flowers. That isn't really a swap to me. And then Garrett Wilson, I know he can be good.
Yeah, I like him, but it's like, yeah, I feel like honestly, as weird as it sounds, Bryce is missing a superstar.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know he's got Mahomes and May, and that's what happens when you go quarterback, essentially, is what he did. But I weirdly enough, and Kyle said it during the draft too, so this is going to come as no shock to him. He drafts wildly different than me. He's had success. I can't knock him. Weirdly enough, again, not power rankings right now. My mind can change by the time the season starts. I really think Bryce and Kyle's teams are the two that I kind of raise my eyebrows at the most.
Yeah.
And maybe it's
No.
because again, they're the two teams that really didn't draft running backs, and my mind always goes running backs.
Yeah.
But it's like,
That's
man,
where
I
you're
just
gonna sit and say,
yeah,
you weigh one thing higher than others. I
exactly,
do think
exactly.
too that Bryce kind of got the shit out of the stick coming out of the draft because your fifth round pick got hurt. He probably won't play for the first couple of weeks in the season. And
And
your
your
10th
10th
round
round pick.
pick got, hurt for the year. So you're already behind the 8 ball relying on guys to step it up in that sense.
Yeah,
So you did kind of get screwed over that way. But I would say, yeah, the 5 and the 6 pick to me are, again, I wouldn't say they're bad teams because they have solid fantasy players. They just aren't, they did not draft in a way in which I myself would draft.
yeah.
So
That's yeah.
they have their outlook on it. I'm just not big fans of either of those teams.
Right. Yeah. And again, Kyle could be a team we look at literally a year from now and we go, holy shit. JSN we know is a dog. Bowers is a dog. McMillan took another step. Purdy, whether you think he's a top 10 quarterback or not, is in that system. Burden became the number one Bears. I mean, again, the path's there. It's just it's one of the ones where you're like, oh, you got to have
Yeah,
a few
and
things
I think
right. So
that because of the balance and the way I look at it myself isn't there, that they're lacking so hard on those running backs that it scares me away. Because even if you just threw in, I mean, for instance, if CMC fell to Kyle, did he take him instead of Purdy? Maybe not. But if you threw CMC in to his team and say Tyler doesn't take Henry and he goes somebody else, I mean,
yeah,
he probably wouldn't. But say Henry fell one more pick. Those 2 picks changed my outlook on both those teams substantially.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
like,
even a Jadarian Price, if he falls two more, and again, who knows if Kyle even takes him, even a Jadarian Price falling two more picks, and instead of having Waddle and taking Price in that situation, I think would make me feel better about Kyle's
yeah.
team too. But going in with Tootin and Warren as like your guys, or Cross Merritt as your guys, seems very,
Yeah.
very, very
I
sketchy.
mean, again, both of them are taking chances on those running backs. They
Yeah,
can pan out. And if they do, I think that's the thing. If those guys pan out, I think that they're ahead to a degree because especially Bryce has those two top tier quarterbacks.
Yeah.
and he's getting that production out of his running backs that he didn't really have to spend up on. Perfect. But the odds of that happening are going to be lower than them
Yeah.
kind of just keeping, up with projections. They have to kind of overperform those. If those guys do overperform their projections, fantastic. I think that they're in good spots, both of them. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. Well, and what I know I'm rambling a little bit, but another thing to think about too is I did not love the Mahomes pick. And again, I might look like an idiot because of the guy Mahomes is. He's going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I'm not saying it's a bad pick by any means, but like, let's not forget Mahomes in like the last 3 or 4 years has sometimes barely been even in the top five fantasy quarterbacks. It's just the
Mhm.
offense hasn't been there. The dude's still immensely talented, but like to me, unless you are a Jalen Hurts or a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen or some of these guys that are running around a little bit and getting you fantasy points that way. I mean, who's to say Mahomes and Jordan Love next year don't have the exact same amount of fantasy points? Who's to say Mahomes and Jared Goff next year
Yeah.
don't have the same amount of fantasy points? It's not like Mahomes is running around scoring 8 touchdowns. So something to think about there. But
Yeah, no, I mean, again, just to kind of close out on that.
yeah,
Fantasy is a lot of trends and just kind of how players performed in the past. Going into redrafts is very different. Dynasty is going to be, again, a different beast.
yeah.
The homes you had last year may not be the homes you have this year, may not be the homes you have next year. So, like, you
He might
know,
come back to MVP form, and then I look stupid for
yeah,
saying that. But
that's the thing
yeah,
too, is that you never truly know, and you're really only ever a couple weeks away from your roster looking completely different
yeah,
and more powerful than it was before. So it's our a lot of our first times doing this. So I'm not gonna sit here and base I haven't had a bad draft, good draft, because
sure.
it's all subjective
Can't
and it's
see.
hard
Yeah,
to tell. We won't know till we get started, but um, I'd be interested in seeing, and again, anyone who listens to this, I would like to hear from you guys. Is that how did you feel about your draft? Did you love your draft? Is there pieces of it that you wish you would have changed? Anybody we talked about, anybody we haven't, just feel free to sound off on what you wish you had done. I know everyone here has. After looking at the draft board, me included, wishes they would have just picked a guy instead of the guy they did pick that round. I mean,
sure.
for instance, um, Montgomery. I could have taken Kyler Murray. I myself was like, I have to share up my running back. I got to take a guy who's going to play. Did it help? Is it going to help my roster construction? Sure, but I feel like upside, I would have preferred Murray. And
Yeah,
again, that's something that I
and
have to
maybe you
live
would have
with.
drafted
But
like who knows? Maybe you would have drafted a running back like a Josh Jacobs there. What if Price would have fallen another pick, and then he would have taken Price, and
yeah,
then maybe they gotten
but
Murray and eight. Yeah,
yeah, with people that you have on your roster, with picks that were made, I'm curious to see if anyone has, that
yeah.
one pick that they wish didn't get away in a sense.
Yeah. Another interesting one to me, real quick, and again, I know we're wrapping up, but even like we talked about tight ends earlier. Tyler Warren, love him, great tight end, right? And I'm not trying to boost my game up by any means, but like Tyler Warren's 24 years old. He's been in the league for a year. Okay, he's 24. He was tight end 7 last year. Kyle Pitts is like only a year older than Tyler Warren. He's been in the league 5 years. He's only a year older than Tyler Warren, and I got him tight end number 3 last year. I got him 4 rounds later. So it's kind of interesting to kind of
Yeah.
see how people judge tight end. So again, it's going to be something
Yeah.
to,
No, and like that's something you can definitely look at. And again, just to kind of emphasize on it, is this is the only draft we'll ever do
yeah,
in regards to
agree to.
full-fledged rosters. You got these guys at the value in which they are now. We've seen some dudes like Pitts underperform.
Yep,
We have small sample
100%.
sizes of Tyler Warrens who have had just one fantastic year. We're all kind of playing a guessing game of, can this dude do it again? Can this dude do it for years? That's the $1 million question. Can this player do what I've
Yeah,
seen them do for years? Any player can fall off at any point in time. You have to
yep.
adjust. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's for sure.
Hey, I'm going for the Kyle Pitts. I don't know if you know his thing where he had one touchdown his first year, two his second, three his third, four. He had five last year. So as long as that continues in this dynasty league, by the time he's 35, man, I'm gonna be going.
Dude's getting 17 TDs or
Yeah,
whatever it's gonna be.
exactly.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely not.
All right, guys.
Absolutely not.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed us chit chatting. Like I said, we're not really going to go over power rankings or projections yet. And honestly, we kind of talked pre-show. We don't really know how often we're going to pod in a dynasty league because rosters are going to be pretty similar. We could maybe do like a trade deadline close to one, or obviously a quick little playoff one. But we'll come back at least one more time and do some power rankings and projections for you guys just to get some shit talking and some pot stirring going. But any last thoughts, Krim, before we get rolling?
Nope, I'm just ready to get going.
Heck
I
yeah.
got 2 more weeks and football's back.
I know all you guys already worried about football already. I still got some baseball to play. What
All
the heck?
right, wrap this up. See
Yeah,
everybody
no.
later.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Sideline Dynasty League. Hopefully you guys have fun, and we will talk to you later.